King Henry III of France ruled during a time of constant turmoil. While he tried to manage the chaos and prevent his country from falling apart, his personal problems often got in the way. The French court was full of betrayal, plotting, and drama, which made it even harder for Henry to make good decisions. Unfortunately, these struggles led to one of the most dramatic and tragic reigns in French history. But there is even weirder and darker stories. It's rumored that King Henry III was sleeping with his sister, but according to his enemies, the truth was even darker. But more on that later. Henry III was born as the fourth son of King Henry II and Catherine de' Medici, which initially placed him far down the line of succession. His early life, like that of many royal children, was shaped by his close relationship with his mother Catherine, who was a shrewd and ambitious political figure. Although he was not expected to become king, the deaths of his brothers due to illness and accidents would rapidly change his fate. From a young age, Henry was noted for his intelligence and sensitivity. He was often regarded as more studious and reflective than his brothers, who were more inclined to military exploits and physical pursuits. He had a strong fondness for the arts, particularly literature and music, which distinguished him from the more martial inclinations of the French monarchy at the time. Henry's charm, physical beauty, and cultured persona earned him favor at the court, but these traits also became sources of both admiration and suspicion as his reign unfolded. The political landscape into which Henry was born was fraught with tension. France in the mid-16th century was deeply divided along religious lines. The French wars of religion were a backdrop to his youth, and as a result, Henry found himself enmeshed in the ongoing religious conflicts. His mother, Catherine, was caught between attempting to appease both factions, using her sons as political pawns to maintain the royal family's power. Henry III of France was a man deeply shaped by his mother, whose influence over him extended well beyond his childhood and into the heart of his reign. Catherine was one of the most formidable political figures of her time, and her careful, calculated nature left a lasting impression on her son. She taught Henry to approach every situation with caution, to weigh his words carefully, and to trust few. This upbringing, while essential in navigating the treacherous waters of French politics, ultimately sowed seeds of distrust among his courtiers and subjects. Henry, like his mother, was known for his inscrutable demeanor. His ability to maintain a perfect poker face in the most turbulent of circumstances became one of his most defining traits. Whether facing domestic strife, foreign diplomats, or the ever-shifting factions within his court, Henry rarely betrayed his inner thoughts or emotions. To some, this composure was admirable, a mark of a king who could rise above the chaos. To others, however, it was deeply unsettling. They whispered that his calm exterior hid ulterior motives, and his refusal to reveal his true intentions made him seem detached, even untrustworthy. This perception was only reinforced by his deliberate and cautious way of speaking and acting. Henry avoided making promises he couldn't keep, an admirable quality in theory, but one that often left his allies feeling uncommitted. His reluctance to take bold stances or reveal strong emotions gave him an air of ambiguity that made him difficult to read, even for those closest to him. His political maneuvers, often shrouded in secrecy and subtlety, earned him comparisons to his mother, who was both admired and feared for her behind-the-scenes influence on French affairs. As a teenager, he was known to openly challenge the Catholic faith, even rejecting Mass. He is said to have mocked sacred religious objects, including smashing a statue of St. Paul and burning religious icons. This period of youthful rebellion caused a stir at court, and while it may have been a brief phase of protest, it did not go unnoticed by the Catholic factions, who saw Henry's actions as a threat to their control. Despite this, he eventually repented. His religious wavering, however, would remain a point of contention throughout his life. Between 1559 and 1560, the French royal family endured a harrowing series of devastating losses that forever altered the dynamics within the Valois dynasty. It began with the tragic death of young Henry's father, King Henry II. During a grand jousting tournament held to celebrate the marriage of his daughter, Elizabeth of Valois, to King Philip II of Spain, a fateful accident occurred. A lance shattered during the competition, with a splinter piercing the king's eye and lodging deep into his brain. The injury was catastrophic, leading to a gruesome infection that even the finest physicians of the time could not cure. After days of agony, King Henry II succumbed to his injuries, leaving his family and the realm in shock. The crown passed to Henry's eldest brother, Francis II, who, at only 15 years old, was thrust into the role of a monarch. Frail and sickly from birth, Francis was ill-equipped to handle the immense responsibilities of kingship. In December 1560, Francis succumbed to tuberculosis at the tender age of 16, leaving the throne once again vacant and the royal family reeling from yet another profound loss. As the family mourned Francis's untimely death, yet another blow struck the Valois line. The next in line to inherit the crown after Francis was Louis of Valois, the fourth son of King Henry II. However, Louis had died in childhood, never living long enough to take on the responsibilities of succession. His death, though a past tragedy, now loomed large, as it left only two surviving sons to carry on the royal lineage. Suddenly, the line of succession narrowed dramatically, and young Henry found himself much closer to the throne than he had ever anticipated. With only one elder sibling remaining, his 10-year-old brother, Charles IV, Henry's chance of eventually becoming king transformed from a distant possibility into a tangible reality. Though Charles was the immediate heir and soon crowned king, his youth and fragile health cast uncertainty over the future of his reign. Outwardly, Henry presented himself as a loyal and devoted younger brother, always ready to support Charles in his duties. He stood by the young king's side, maintaining an image of unity and cooperation, especially as their mother, Catherine de' Medici, acted as regent during Charles' minority. However, Henry's actions behind the scenes hinted at a more complex reality. He demonstrated a sharp political acumen and a growing ambition that did not go unnoticed by those in the court. Henry forged alliances, gained favor with influential nobles, and excelled in military endeavors, subtly positioning himself as a strong, capable leader should the need arise. These developments did not escape the notice of Charles IV or their mother. Though there was no overt rivalry between the brothers, the tension was undeniable. Henry's calculated actions suggested that while he publicly honored his brother's reign, he was quietly preparing for the day when the crown might fall to him. For Henry, the tragedies that befell his family were not just a series of personal losses, but also the turning point that thrust him into the shadow of the throne, with all the complexities and rivalries that entailed. In 1574, after Charles' untimely death, Henry became the King of France. By this point, Henry's royal role was already a heavy burden, as the country was deeply entrenched in religious warfare and civil unrest. The rise to power for Henry was marked by both triumph and tragedy, as he inherited a kingdom in chaos, struggling with internal divisions that were not easily overcome. Once crowned, Henry III sought to navigate the difficult political waters of his time, balancing the conflicting interests of Protestants, Catholics, and noble families. His reign coincided with a series of bloody confrontations between the factions. Meanwhile, the Protestants were led by leader Henry of Navarre, and they were starting to gain strength, making the political landscape volatile and unpredictable. One of the most infamous events of Henry's reign was the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572. This mass slaughter of Huguenots during a period of relative peace between the factions is often considered one of the darkest chapters of his reign. While Henry's direct role in the massacre remains controversial, it is clear that he failed to intervene or stop the violence once it began. Thousands of Protestants were killed, and the event deepened the divisions within France, leading to further civil war and bloodshed. The massacre tarnished Henry's reputation and painted him as a weak king who was unable or unwilling to maintain control over his own court. Amid these religious and political conflicts, Henry's efforts to forge alliances were often undermined by his inability to control the factions vying for power within his court. He struggled with the Catholic League, which sought to depose him and replace him with a more staunchly Catholic monarch. In addition to his political struggles, Henry's personal life was marked by instability and scandal. His marriage to Louise of Lorraine, whom he married in 1575, was primarily a political arrangement, yet it was clouded by Henry's deep emotional and psychological challenges. Louise, the daughter of the Duke of Lorraine, was chosen for her political connections rather than any personal affection. Despite this, Henry's relationship with Louise was one of genuine devotion, especially following the death of his first love, Marie de Clèves. Despite his grief over Marie's death, Henry continued to maintain a lavish and extravagant court. He was known for his luxurious clothing and jewelry, and flamboyant personal style. His physical appearance, with his tall stature and handsome features, only added to the aura of a regal and charismatic monarch. He was known for loving jewelry, especially pearls. He would wear pearls in his beard, hair, and around his neck. He was also known from time to time to cross-dress, wearing makeup, wearing women's gowns and dresses, and really showing that he wasn't afraid to truly be himself. However, his emotional fragility, combined with the pressures of ruling, led him into deep depressions at times. His moods and behavior were unpredictable, and his court struggled to understand how to manage a king whose temperament was often volatile. As Henry III's reign continued, his ability to maintain control over France continued to wane. In 1584, the death of his cousin, the Duke of Anjou, led to Henry's need to seek an alliance with Henry of Navarre, the leader of the Huguenots, and the conflict between the two men escalated into open warfare. In 1589, Henry III's reign came to a tragic and abrupt end when he was assassinated by a Catholic fanatic named Jacques Clement. The monk, who was a member of the radical Catholic faction, saw Henry as a traitor to the Catholic cause. His death was a turning point in French history, as it marked the end of the Valois dynasty and the beginning of the Bourbon era. Henry's death allowed Henry of Navarre, now Henry IV, to ascend to the throne, ultimately ending the wars of religion and ushering in a new era of relative stability for France. Henry IV changed France forever by ending the devastating French wars of religion between Catholics and Huguenots. As the first Bourbon king, he converted to Catholicism to secure peace, famously declaring, "Paris is worth a mass." In 1598, he issued the Edict of Nantes, granting religious tolerance to Protestants, which stabilized France and ended decades of conflict. His pragmatic leadership restored the economy, centralized power, and laid the foundation for future French monarchs. Long after Henry's demise, there are still some chilling rumors about the king. The most disturbing of all goes back to the fact that when he and his sister Margaret were children, they would sleep in the same bed. In the years to come, Henry's possessive need to control Margaret's love life made members of the court raise their eyebrows. Over time, rumors began to spread that Henry and his sister Margaret may have been in a romantic relationship, and somehow, that's not even the worst part. According to some historical sources, people didn't just think that Margaret slept with Henry III. They also believed that this was a family affair. Allegedly, she also slept with her other brother, Charles. Maybe there's a reason that King Henry was always so volatile with his emotions. King Henry III's legacy is complex. Though his reign was marked by a series of political missteps, personal tragedies, and religious conflicts, it was also a time of great change in France. The violent religious wars that defined much of his reign would eventually give way to the more stable Bourbon dynasty, and Henry IV's subsequent reign would lay the groundwork for the modern French state. Henry III's death brought to a close the reign of the Valois family, a dynasty that had dominated France for nearly 300 years. While his reign was largely unsuccessful in terms of consolidating power, it remains an important period in the broader history of France, shaped by the complex interplay of religion, politics, and personal intrigue. Henry III's life and reign serve as a reminder of the fragility of monarchy and the challenges faced by rulers in times of deep internal division. One could wonder, might King Henry III of France have left a greater legacy had he devoted more focus to the responsibilities of his reign rather than his luxurious and scandalous lifestyle? Was his mom the one to blame, or was he just unfit to be king? I guess we will never truly know. Thanks for watching History Exposé. If you love uncovering the best stories in history, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring with us. Don't forget to visit our main page, Factinate, for more incredible facts about everything.